All right, good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Monday, April 25th, 2023 joint meeting of the Greenville City Council and Greenville Utilities Commission. I'm Mayor P.J. Connolly. I'll be presiding over the meeting on behalf of the City Council. Next, I call on Commissioner Darden to open the meeting for GUC.
Yes. I'd like to thank everyone for this joint meeting. We do it annually, first and foremost, but I would first and foremost like to call the meeting to order on behalf of the commissioners here assembled with us tonight. And Amy will give us a roll call.
Chair Darden.
Here.
Commissioner Geiger. Commissioner Griffin.
Here.
Commissioner Wall.
Here.
Commissioner Stoughton.
Here.
Commissioner Blunt.
Here.
Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Gardner.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you.
All right, I'll call on our city clerk for the roll call for the City of Greenville.
Yes, sir. Mayor Connolly.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Glover has let us know she will not be able to attend this evening. Councilmember Daniels.
Present.
Councilmember Blackburn.
Present.
Councilmember Smiley.
Here.
Councilmember Robinson.
Here.
Councilmember Bell.
Here.
All right, Mayor Connolly, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Madam Manager, any recommended changes?
No changes on the city side, Mayor.
All right, do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
All right, motion's been made by Councilmember Smiley, second by Councilmember Daniels. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay.
Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Dart?
Amy, do we have any changes on behalf of Greenville Utilities? No. No, Tony? Okay. That being said, we need a motion and a second to accept the agenda.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Passes.
All right, we'll move on now to the public comment period for issues that are germane to both the City Council and the Greenville Utilities Commission Board. Public comment period is a period reserved for comments by the public. Items that were or scheduled to be the subject of a public hearing conducted the same meeting or another meeting during the same week shall not be discussed. A total of 30 minutes is allocated, with each individual being allowed no more than 3 minutes. Individuals who registered with the city clerk to speak will speak in the order registered until the allotted 30 minutes expires. If time remains after all persons who have registered have spoken, individuals who have not registered will have an opportunity to speak until the allotted 30 minutes expires. Madam Clerk, our first speaker.
Yes, sir. We have one registered speaker, Mr. Paul Gemperline. You've got 3 minutes to address both boards.
Okay.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. My name's Paul Gemperline, and I'm speaking today because I want to raise the City Council and public's awareness about Greenville Utilities' electric rate plan for residential solar customers, which includes what I would call a punitive demand charge that could make my electric bill stay the same or even increase if I were to switch to solar. I want to thank Greenville Utilities for walking me through the details of their 2 solar rate plans. And I want to acknowledge that Greenville Utilities provides low electric rates for residential customers with excellent reliability. I understand that the costs to maintain and operate their distribution system must be recovered through reasonable charges to its customers, and that it would be unfair to expect non-solar customers to subsidize residential customers. So back to me. We recently secured quotes for a solar rooftop system that would meet most of our household energy needs. The best quote had an estimated payback time of 13.6 years after federal tax credits and a guarantee of 25 years. But I found out in their estimate that they neglected to include the demand charge from Greenville Utilities. So I did some calculations, and under the most favorable scenario, the payback period would be at least 25 years, maybe more like 30 or 35 years. So I also want to thank Peter Geiger, one of the Greenville Utility Commissioners, for taking time to discuss this with me. We met at his office 2 weeks ago, and he looked at my estimates based on our household energy consumption and agreed my estimates were reasonable. So there are 3 things I want to encourage council members and the general public to do. First, encourage Greenville Utilities to study financial models for residential solar rates and answer this question. What are the increased costs that GUC would incur if I switched to residential solar that must be recouped by this demand fee? 2, To the best of my knowledge, Duke Energy and other commercial providers in North Carolina provide favorable net metering rates very similar to Greenville Utilities, except they have zero demand charge. Why does Greenville Utilities need to include this charge when the others don't? And third, encourage Greenville Utilities to examine financial models that were used by the North Carolina Public Utility Commission in negotiating and setting Duke Energy's residential solar rate plans. And consider if it's possible to develop a rate plan that does not include a demand charge. Lastly, I want to thank you for listening, and I was encouraged last week at the Greenville Utilities plans to engage an engineering firm this summer, June or
It's
July,
time.
to study solar rate plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gepperline. Madam Clerk, our next speaker.
Connolly, there are no additional speakers.
All right, anyone else like to speak during the public comment period, please come forward, state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes. All right, seeing none, with the help of Mr. Darden.
Any other individuals like to speak as it relates to the relevancy of Greenville Utilities in the City Council meeting tonight? None? Thank you.
We'll close the public comment period. We'll move on to approval of the minutes of the September 19, 2022 Joint City Council Greenville Utilities Commission Board meeting. Move to approve. All right.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilmember Smiley, second by Councilmember Bell. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay.
Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Darden.
Commissioners, we need a motion and a second to approval of the minutes from the September Joint City Council meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Passes.
All right, we'll move on to item number 5, consideration of the market adjustment merit allocation for fiscal year 2023-2024. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll call forward Richie Shreves with Greenville Utilities, who will provide the presentation on the consideration of the market adjustment merit allocation for 23-24. Ms. Shreves?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So as you can imagine, attracting and retaining qualified employees is very important to both GUC and to the city of Greenville. Therefore, annually, the city and GUC review our joint pay plans. We do this to keep our thumb on the pulse of the external market to ensure that we are remaining as competitive as possible in terms of salary and benefits. As part of this process for salary review, we look at published surveys, and then we also reach out to public and private sector benchmarks. As you'll see from this list, we use 7 reputable published surveys. And collectively, these surveys are projecting a 4.1% pay increase. GUC and the city have historically used Catapult, or in the past it was known as CAI, as our primary benchmark, and that is because it represents companies in North Carolina and in South Carolina. And you can see from the chart, the projected increase is 3.5% with Catapult. We also survey 26 public and 27 private sector benchmarks. Of the respondents, the public sector reported an average increase of 5.2% for the current fiscal year, and the private sector reported an average of 4.8%. When asked about fiscal year 23 and 24, public sector projects a 5.7% increase, although they had a limited number of respondents, and private sector projects 4.8%. This next chart shows, basically in a chart, what I was just talking to you about. And you will see there both our current fiscal year, some history from the last couple of fiscal years, and then the projection for the future. What we come to you with tonight is asking for approval for a 2% pay adjustment for fiscal year 23-24 to be applied as, to be applied as deemed appropriate by each entity. So I open the floor for questions.
Do we have any questions from the city of Greenville?
Any questions from any commissioners?
Councilmember Blackburn?
Yes, hi, thank you for that, for all that good information. I would like to ask, I certainly agree that 2% seems like a proper amount. Most of the forecasts were for larger increases. Is there any reason why our increase doesn't match the forecast that we studied?
So there was much discussion about that with the committee, and to be quite honest, I think it boiled down to being able to feel like we could bring something to the joint boards that the budget would support.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Smiley?
Also, I think that there was some attention to the fact that in January 1st, we did a true-up, right? So we did a substantial, so to some extent, we only have to account at this time for 6 months' worth of inflation as opposed to a full year.
And I want to thank Councilman Smiley for bringing that up, because we absolutely have done this already.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion been made by Councilmember Bell, second by Councilmember Daniels. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay.
Motion passes 5-0.
GUC commissioners, need a motion and a second to accept as rendered.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item number 6, consideration of salary structure adjustments for fiscal year 2023-2024. Madam
Right,
Manager?
and the city's Human Resources Director, Leah Futrell, will have that presentation.
Good evening. Equally important as the pay adjustment is the salary structure adjustment that we evaluate each year, both the city and GUC. Back in 2015 and more recently in 22, Siegel recommended that we review annually our structure to ensure it remains competitive with the market. So, of course, in keeping with that recommendation, we've done that, and for January 1st, 2023, pay structures were adjusted in accordance with the results of the true-up. General pay structures by 8%, fire rescue pay structures by 4.25%, and police pay structures by 3.35%. I do want to say, though, that prior to January 1st of 2023, effective July 1st of 22, the city and GUC also adjusted pay structures. And then pay structures were adjusted by 2.1%. And that was in accordance with World at Work projections. And World at Work is an index that we use, that we've traditionally used because it's very well known and trusted by comp professionals. And so we have relied heavily upon World at Work's projection. For 2023, World at Work projects salary structures to increase by 2.7%, which is a little bit more than typical, but obviously the labor market has changed, particularly post-COVID. To remain market competitive, it is recommended that salary structures be adjusted by 2% for fiscal year 23-24. And the reason that we're not recommending a 2.7% as recommended or projected by World at Work is because, of course, we would not want the salary structure to exceed the pay adjustment, which is the recommended 2% that you all just approved. So we are recommending that the salary structures be adjusted by 2% for fiscal year 23-24. So the action requested, as stated, is adjust the joint pay plan salary structures by 2% for fiscal year 23-24.
All right. Councilmember Smiley?
And again, just to, for the benefit of the group, again, a lot of this consideration was based on the fact that we're less than 6 months out from drawing a new line, which represented where we brought everybody to market, where we addressed the market
issues related to our pay plan and salary structure, so that this adjustment here is not dealing with a whole year worth of changes.
Councilmember Blackburn?
So if I understand correctly, we've got the 2% across the board salary increase, which we just approved, and then this takes every job and just shifts it up 2%. Wherever you are, you go up 2%. That job itself is now valued with the salary bumps up by 2%. Is that right?
Right. This is related to the structures themselves, not individual salaries. So minimums, midpoints, and maximums of each pay grade will increase by 2%.
Now, the question that always comes up, or it certainly does for me, is, you know, it matters of salary compression and what does this do for longtime employees? Is this addressed within this action? In other words, is that addressed in other ways?
Pay compression?
Just for people who've been here a long time and who maybe don't start in the same place that someone new does.
Right. Well, part of the true-up that took place in 2022, and the results were effective January 1 of 23, heavily addressed pay compression for our tenured employees. What this will do will, because the structures will be, assuming you all approve it, if the structures are adjusted by 2%, new hires whose pay would be less would be brought up, so that anyone coming in after them, that their pay does not surpass them. So to try to maintain some balance.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Move to approve. Second.
All right, motion's been made by Councilmember Smiley, second by Councilmember Bell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Motion passes 5-0.
Commissioners, we need a motion and a second to accept.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Thank you very much. Move on to item number 7, the consideration of annual vacation accrual. Madam Manager.
Again, HR Director of your trial.
Okay. In looking at pay for this upcoming fiscal year, one of the things we also considered were benefits, particularly vacation accrual. And it was determined that we've not adjusted the vacation accrual rates in many years. And because of that, our vacation accrual rates lag the market, as shown on this slide. The City of Greenville, GUC, is the first entity, of course, that's listed. One of the first things I want to point out is that we do accruals based generally in 5-year intervals. So an employee with 5 years of service would accrue 120 hours of vacation, and so forth and so on. 10 years, 144. What I want to point out is that for some reason, before my time, there's no division or divide between 10 years or 15 years. So the 10-year accrual rate is the same as 15-year accrual rate. And then it increases at 20 years of service. Looking at the benchmarks, you can see that they don't follow that same methodology. They do reward progressive increases at that 15-year mark. I won't go through each one, but we did include the mode, the median, and the average for all of those benchmarks that are shown there. There's one benchmark in particular that we kind of focused on, and we'll look at that one now, and that is Pitt County government. And as you can see, these are the current accrual rates for both the City of Greenville and GUC compared to Pitt County government. And for this particular entity, we wanted to compare ourselves with them specifically because, of course, they're a local benchmark, and they are a benchmark that we compete for, particularly on the city side, for talent, whether it be law enforcement or law enforcement support in particular, such as telecommunicators. So we thought it important that we could at least be on par with Pitt County. And so you can see that what's different. I'll just point out the 5-year rate. Right now, employees for the City of Greenville and GUC accrue 120 hours once they reach 5 years of service. Pitt County employees at that same rate or time in service, 5 years, accrue 132 hours. So from a number of days perspective, it's not shown on the chart, but I'll just kind of point it out. For the city of Greenville at 5 years, that's 15 days annually, compared to Pitt County, 16 and a half days. So if this is approved, employees would be gaining a day and a half. At the 10-year mark, currently 18 days, it would go to 19 and a half days. Again, another day and a half. 15-year mark, currently 18 days for the city and GUC. It would increase to 22 and a half days, so 4.5 days increase. And at the 20-year mark, currently for the city of Greenville and GUC, it's 21 days, and it would increase by 4.5 days to 25 and a half days. So we feel that's a significant increase for employees, and one that would reward employees for their dedicated service with minimal fiscal impact. So the action that's being requested tonight is that you approve the change in the vacation accrual rates to mirror Pitt County government's 5 through 20 years annual accrual rates. I do want to point out that we did not include the accrual rates for employees with less than 5 years of service because we feel that that's pretty competitive. We instead wanted to focus on those employees who've been loyal to the city and GUC and who have attained at least 5 years of service.
All right. Any questions?
I do.
Councilmember Bell?
We know what the fiscal impact to the city or to the taxpayers would be to make this change?
We do. We did a worst case analysis because with the city and GUC, employees can only accrue what they can earn in 2 years before it converts to sick leave. So that limits the liability to both organizations. And from a worst case scenario, the cost would be, it's not expected to exceed $56,500 for the city and $52,570 for GUC.
In the chart that you showed, I guess if we were pulling peer cities, do we know like what the leader in the state across all municipalities would be in respect to time off?
Not specifically or precisely, but sort of anecdotally, we kind of know that the town of Cary is a leader in a lot of respects with regard to pay and benefits, and they, the league, the North Carolina League of Municipalities, issues a biannual summary of vacation time, and the last one was issued in 20 and 21, and since that time, the town of Cary has increased their accrual rates, and those rates are shown. They're included. Sorry, I'll get there. They are included in this slide. They are most adjusted rates.
Okay. And that's the only time that we have is this PTO, vacation, what is this classified as?
For the city and GUC, we classify it separately as vacation, and sick leave is separately as sick leave. We don't lump them together as PTO.
Okay. And we don't have any rollover from year to year? We do. Is it capped at that amount of hours for the rollover?
It's capped at the maximum is what an employee can earn in 2 years. So whatever they can earn in 2 years, that's the cap before it rolls over to sick leave.
Okay.
And once it rolls over to sick leave, the city, if the employee were to leave the city or GUC, it would not be paid out upon separation.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Robinson?
Can you tell me when Pitt County set their accrual leave?
I cannot tell you the date that they set it, unfortunately. I do know that they do try to, it was shared with me that they do try to mirror the state of North Carolina, so they're not very far off at all from the state.
So you can't tell me what year they set their numbers?
I cannot, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Councilmember Daniels?
2 questions, actually. Excuse me. When will this go into effect? Immediately or?
We were recommending a July 1, at the same time that the pay adjustments goes into effect, that this would go into effect.
Okay. And having been an employee of Pitt County, I know we also adjusted at 2 years.
Okay.
Do we do that at the city?
No, ma'am, we do not. Yes. And we saw that for Pitt County, but because that's not our interval, we only look 5 to 20.
That's fine. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions, City Council?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion's been made by Councilmember Bell, seconded by Councilmember Daniels. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay.
Motion passes 5-0.
Commissioners, any questions? Being none, need a motion and a second to accept.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Thank you.
All right. Next, I need a motion to adjourn from the City Council.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion's been made by Councilmember Bell, seconded by Councilmember Blackburn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right.
GUC Commissioners, we need a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Thank you.
All right. We are adjourned.
Gavel.
Yeah.